But it's your boy Toxic Boyo, and we are back with a long-standing tradition on this channel, so long-standing that we haven't done it in 6 years. Although I could have sworn that we did one in 2022. Maybe I just recorded, uploaded it, and took it down. I don't know, but not there, so I have no proof that it ever existed. Anyway, you saw the title, you saw the thumbnail. We are here to discuss my personal top 10 films that were released in 2025. Now, before we dive in, I would like to preface that this is probably the year where I saw the fewest big movies. Not even necessarily big movies, but just like the fewest movies in general. I would say since like 2016 or 17, I've been pretty on top of like seeing the vast majority of what comes out that generates buzz. Usually on top of watching all that stuff, but this year, I don't know. I don't know if it's where I had been mentally that I talked about in the other video, or just what was keeping me so busy, but I did miss out on quite a lot of movies. Not watch Predator Killer of Killers, I did not watch Weapons, I did not watch Begonia, I did not watch One Battle After Another, I haven't seen Avatar Fire and Act. There's a lot of movies that some people would consider to be among the best, or the very best movies that came out this year, but I didn't see them. I missed out on a lot of movies. So this list will, for all intents and purposes, kind of just be like a, it's going to be most of the movies here. So it was a little difficult to narrow it down, I suppose. But, I don't think that my picks are going to particularly blow anyone's minds. But all that being said, let's start with number 10, which was Companion. Now, I didn't hear until after I saw the movie that there was a lot of talk about this film in regards to how it relates to feminism and female empowerment and female rage, stuff like that. I said way back that I'm not in a place to discuss that aspect. I'm not educated enough on that. It's not up to me to weigh in. All I can really do is judge it as a film on its own merits, and as such, I thought it was probably the most unique and interesting psychological horror that I had seen in a long time. Now, that's not to say that what this movie has to say is, incredibly new. It is, at the end of the day, about a woman escaping an abusive relationship and gaining independence. That's the core of what the film is about. It's just kind of wrapped up in a metaphor about, about an android, and it's very sci-fi, and that part's interesting. I know that a lot of people were saying that they wish they hadn't been spoiled in the marketing material that what's her name, Iris, was an android, but I didn't see any of that marketing material. I saw one trailer. Like it was like a teaser, it was like a 30-second teaser of Jack Quaid and Sophie Thatcher having dinner, and Sophie's handcuffed. That's like all I saw. I knew from there I was hooked, and I wanted to see this movie, and I guess I got very lucky in that way, because just based on the premise alone, I think that this would be more than lived up to my expectations. Fortunately, I don't necessarily think it's going to be one that's super memorable, not heavily talked about down the road, but I do think that it was, in conjunction with something like Scream 5, a good way to show Jack Quaid's range. I think that he is very easy to write off as a certain type of actor. It's very easy to typecast him, and I think that those two films do a lot to help push past that narrative, and I want to see great things from Jack Quaid. I want to see him be the next, the next movie star, because we don't really have too many. But that's all I got to say about Companion. Moving on. Number 9, F1. Now, I personally have a very extensive and deep appreciation for sports movies, and my relationship with them goes way, way, way back. And so I try to watch any and all sports movies that I can, any of them that come out. I watched National Champions, I watched, what was the one about Kurt Warner with Zachary Levi? I watched Southpaw, Raging Bull, Fighter, I watched Fighting with My Family. Like any sports movie that I can get my hands on, I'm gonna watch. Rush, Gran Turismo, anything. even if it's based on a true story, because that part doesn't necessarily matter to me too much. And F1 was no different. Um, it's a sport that I didn't personally have a huge vested interest in until after I watched it, because the movie, which I think is what a lot of sports movies try to do, did its job here, and it made me interested in seeking out the sport and learning more about it and watching it on a regular basis. I unfortunately found myself attached to Charles Leclerc, and so that makes me a Ferrari fan, and so I'm going to be heartbroken for the foreseeable future. But apart from that, movie itself, obviously it got a lot of attention by being directed, or for being directed by John Krasinski? Alright, whoever, the director of Top Gun Maverick. And, you know, you hear that Samson Idris and Brad Pitt went through intense training. They did some F2 driving. You know, all of the, you know, driver shots are filmed practically. All that stuff is real. And it interests you. It makes you want to go see it. And that part of it is exciting. When you're on the track is when the movie's at its best, obviously. But it's kind of the connective tissue in between races that drags it down a little bit. The personal drama is very surface level. It's not, you know, it doesn't require a lot of thinking or meditation or contemplation. It's very, you know, what you see is what you get. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but you want a little bit more, especially because, like, they could have taken that route in Top Gun Maverick with Rooster's beef with Maverick, but it actually runs deeper than just, oh, my dad got killed. You know, so it's just kind of, I don't know, it just leaves you wanting more. And I thought that the romance subplot was contrived like it usually is, but I still quite enjoyed F1, and I have watched it since then. I think it's just a good movie. Okay, moving on. Number 8. This is something that I wanted to be a lot higher on my list. Fantastic Four: First Steps. Now, I did a review on this movie, and I said back then that I loved it. And that's still true, but I did rewatch it recently with my girlfriend, because she hadn't seen it yet, and it made me realize something. It's kinda tough to rewatch. You know, I think that MCU movies are made with rewatchability in mind, because it's like, oh, when the next Avengers movie comes out, you're going to want to rewatch, you're going to want to marathon, and I think that they make it as digestible as possible for that purpose. This one, though, just doesn't really have that. The very first time that you're going through, very interesting, the mystery about Galactus and all that stuff, it's very fascinating, and it's really nice to see Fantastic Four as a family, everybody getting a moment to shine, with one big asterisk, one big orange rocky asterisk. It's Ben. Ben, I think, is the emotional center of the Fantastic Four. That was something that the old movies from the 2000s, or at least that first movie, got right. And then the second movie is about Johnny. I think that that's a good decision, because, you know, Johnny's a knucklehead, but he's not like Michelangelo. Like, he has the most emotional depth out of the four. The thing with Ben, though, is that his story is somewhat unchanging, and you could say that people don't want to see it again, but I think it's important in pursuit of giving Ben something to do. You know, he talks to a lady that runs a kindergarten or something like that, and he goes to synagogue with her, and that's like his entire personal story. Johnny gets an emotional arc, Reed gets an emotional arc, Sue gets an emotional arc. Ben doesn't, because the movie doesn't really have time for him. And it kind of shows you something that people have been talking about for a long time since this movie came out, is that it's edited the hell and back. You know, you watch the trailers and you watch the movie, and there's so clearly so much cut content, and it's very disappointing because Ben is just so important. He's given nothing to do. But I do love the aesthetic. I love the effort that goes into making that movie feel different. But I do kind of mourn the fact that we're not going to get any more of that. We might get it for like a minute or two in Avengers Doomsday, but then they're going to join the main MCU, and that stuff's gone. You know, and I think that hurts the rewatchability too, because you can't really get attached to anything that you just saw, because we know what's coming. And you could have said the same thing about Vision when they put the Mind Stone in his head, because, you know, Thanos is coming for that. but I don't think it really worked that same way. I still found Age of Ultron and Civil War to be quite rewatchable, and I just don't get that here. It doesn't make the movie any worse, but it does keep it from, being one of my favorites because I can't really go back and rewatch it and enjoy it nearly as much. So moving from there, pardon the interruption, it's your boy Toxic Boyo, and I wanted to take a brief moment to let you know about the Toxic Touch Productions Patreon. I'm not currently monetized on YouTube, but I still want to bring you the best content that I possibly can. I want to make those videos that you love, and I want them to be the best that they can be. But I need a little help. That's where you guys come in. If you want to support me directly, you can head on over to patreon.com/ToxicTouchProductions or click the link in the description or the pinned comment. For even just $5 a month, you can get your name included in the credits at the end of the video, gain access to exclusive channels on the Discord, and you get specialized merch at no extra cost. It only gets better as the tiers go higher. Go check it out. Thanks for listening and thanks for supporting my dreams. Now let's get back to the video. We've got Mission Impossible Final Reckoning, spot number 7. I did a review of this one as well, so I'll try to keep my thoughts on this one. My intention was to stay briefer on the movie that I've done reviews on. That's not going quite so well, is it? Now, Mission Impossible, for a while there as a franchise, was something that a lot of people saw as getting better every time. Like, ever since Mission Impossible 3 came out, like 3 was the best one so far, then 4 was the best one so far, then 5, and then 6, and so far 6 is still the best. I say so far because we don't necessarily know that they're not going to do it, and just without Tom Cruise. But, yeah, number 8, or number 6 is still the best. Fallout is still the absolute best. And it comes down to Henry Cavill. He was great in that movie. The villain of 7 and 8, Gabriel and the Entity, just don't work for me. Entity is this, it's a faceless AI. It's cool. It's like if Ultron didn't have a face, but the thing is, Ultron has a face and Ultron has a personality. Brainiac has a face and a personality. Entity doesn't. Gabriel has a face, but no personality. And they try so hard to weave everything back into itself and be like, oh, this was the rabbit's foot from the 3rd movie, and this is the guy from the first one, and then the bad guy from the first one has a son, and that's this guy. Like, it tries so hard to be so self-referential, and I just don't think that it works. This movie is carried by the action. That's not crazy to say. This is Mission Impossible we're talking about. But I say that in such a way that, like, I didn't really feel much when anything else was happening. And I really would have. Like, Luther's death obviously hit me hard, because it's been around getting. But if they had committed to killing Ethan at the end of the movie, it would have been so much better. Because if this is the finale, if this is really it, what do we gain from Ethan living? It would have been better, in my opinion, if the rest of the team got together, they met up, and Ethan wasn't there because he was dead. And the rest of them continue to work in his absence, But I don't know, like, I felt like the whole thing was meant to get everybody ready to get without Ethan, and the movie just won't commit to really anything. And I think that's the thing that holds it back the most. It's one of the lamest villains in the franchise, and the movie kind of just has no guts. It has no balls. It has no spine to do anything that would break the mold. But it's still a great movie. It's Mission Impossible. Unless it's the second one, it's not going to be a bad movie. So I feel good placing it outside the top 5, but still in the top 10. Next up, the most recent addition to the list, Wake Up Dead Man, A Knives Out Mystery. This movie, I wanted to put it in my top 3 originally, because, like, and this is personal, it's completely subjective, and that's obviously how this works. All things are subjective when we're talking about favorites or least favorites. This is... So, as far as Knives Out is concerned, Wake Up Dead Man, I think, is better than Glass Onion, but worse than the first Knives Out. And the reason that this movie resonated with me so deeply and so heavily, because I used to be religious, and it's interesting watching a movie... I don't know if Rian Johnson was religious at one point and had a spiritual deconstruction at some point, or if he was raised in a Christian household and always rejected it. but the way that he comments on religion and religious hypocrisy, it feels so personal, because the things that he uses these characters to say about Christianity and about people who use the word of God as a weapon and as a shield from their own wicked ways is something that I have felt for a long time. And I've thought about doing videos ever since Rhett and Link went public about their deconstruction. I've thought about doing videos about my own, because it was scary for me, difficult to communicate to my very religious family why I couldn't continue to believe in the same way that they did. So that hit me harder than just about any movie that I saw this year. And also, Benoit Blanc looks great in this movie. I love the long hair on him. But the thing that holds it back for me is it's not just that this isn't a super star-studded cast, because, I mean, Josh Brolin, Thomas Hayden Church, Kerry Washington, that's great, you know? But the characters aren't as interesting as they were last time. I think that Glass Onion has the most interesting characters, and Knives Out has the most interesting mystery. My problem with Glass Onion was kind of the way that the truth was revealed. It asks you to accept so much coincidence, you know, and obviously that's good for any mystery story, but too much of it is also definitely a bad thing. This one, I feel like, does strike a good balance. I think the humor is a lot more toned down from the previous one, but it is still very on the nose. The political commentary is still very in your face, and it's tongue-in-cheek. It's very self-referential. I like that. Oh, Andrew Scott was also really good in this movie, but not in it enough. Jeremy Renner, good in the movie, not in it enough. Most of it is Father Judd and Benoit Blanc. Now, obviously, these movies are at their best when Benoit Blanc is on screen, but it takes Benoit 30 minutes to show up in this one. You know? This is the one that gives you the most background before the murder, right? Like, in Glass Onion, the murder had already taken place before the events of the movie actually start. In Knives Out, it's a murder/suicide, but it still happens very early into the movie, like 5 minutes in. Benoit Blanc is on screen within 15 minutes. This one really takes its time, and that's not a bad thing, but I do wonder how it, you know, affects people's opinions on it if they did come for Benoit. I think that the direction of this movie is probably the best in the franchise. I love the use of lighting and the use of music. It's just, you know, the mystery of the first one is still more interesting to me. This one's really good, but not quite top 5 caliber for me, and I wouldn't want to put it there just because it spoke to me on a spiritual level. That wouldn't necessarily. So I feel safe putting that just outside the top 5. Now, 5, Thunderbolts with an asterisk. I said way back when this movie came out over 6 months ago that it was Marvel's best in years, and I still hold true to that opinion. I love what that movie says about depression and isolation and guilt and addiction and mistakes, and how none of that defines you. You have an opportunity every day to take your power back and try to make a difference within your own life. Try to take control back, and I love that message. I really do. It's not a perfect movie, obviously not. I think that they spend a little bit too much time in that vault towards the beginning of the movie. I think putting Taskmaster in it was absolutely pointless, especially because she gets killed off so fast, despite her mask being bulletproof in the last movie. I don't love that it's pretty much just a sequel to Black Widow, and that the movie is kind of just made out of leftover characters that haven't had much to do. I think that does hurt the appeal of it, but I think that, well, they definitely made the best with what they had, and I think that the movie is incredible. And it shows that they are willing to do new things and willing to take risks and talk about more complicated subjects, but then Marvel will turn around and bring Chris Evans back as Captain America. So it's very confusing as to what Marvel wants. I know that Thunderbolts wasn't a huge success. I think that they should have waited to do that name reveal by calling it the New Avengers. I don't think that they should have done that the first day the movie was out. I think that might have also hurt interest in it. I think that they were doing it to kind of boost interest, but people are like, what do you mean the New Avengers? You know, I think that that's best kept as a surprise for the very end of it. I think that it could have had an effect like Sinners, and that positive word of mouth could have uplifted this movie, and it could have ended up doing better. It's strange to me that Fantastic Four was the highest grossing Marvel movie of the year, and it still grossed less than Superman. It does show that Marvel's kind of in dire straits, and it's hard to nail down why, but that's not what this movie is about. Right now, I'm talking about Thunderbolts as it is on its own, and I loved it. It is one of the two movies I've rewatched the most this year. And we'll get to the other one. Next up, number 4, Mickey 17. I don't think I did a review, but I wanted to read the Mickey 7 novel before I saw the movie. Didn't get a chance to do that, so I do just have to judge this movie on its own merits, which is obviously not a problem. I think that what this movie has to say about colonialism and fear-mongering and political dogma is not necessarily groundbreaking. It's not anything new. It's not something that you've never heard before in a movie. I mean, you've heard it in Avatar, but I do think that it's better communicated here than it is in Avatar, because it's not necessarily using like a stand-in or a substitute. The Avatar movies want to tell you a story about the colonialization of America, but instead of having Native Americans, they're really tall and they're blue, but they still have really long braids, and they believe heavily in spiritualism. This movie is like, well, we're not using the aliens here, or what do they call them in the movies? Creepers. We're not using the so-called creepers here as an allegory for anything else. We're using the entire story, right? So that you can see the creepers as a stand-in for whatever, or you can just take it at surface value and it still tells the same story and it still carries the same meaning. But beyond that, I just think Robert Pattinson knocks it out of the park in this movie. I think he's absolutely fantastic as Mickey 17 and 18. It's interesting that they have such different personalities, but this is the first time that there's been a duplicate, so maybe he didn't get put together the exact same way or something like that. There's never really a direct explanation given to you as to why Mickey 17 and 18 are so different from one another, but I think it works really well. And gosh, Warner Brothers was really going heavy on their concept of having one actor play two characters, but I loved it. It's unfortunate that it didn't do better in the box office, but and I'll even go as far as to say that this is the best Mark Ruffalo's been in a movie. Poor Things. Well, I shouldn't say Poor Thing, like, because that wasn't super. But I mean, just to say that, like, the longer he plays Bruce Banner, the more checked out he seems, and I was just worried that he wasn't giving it his all in general anymore. But Poor Things and Mickey 17 have shown that he is still a great actor when he is emotionally attached to the project. So, I do appreciate that. Now we're into the top 3. Two of which you're probably going to be able to predict pretty handily. But number 3, Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. I love Guillermo del Toro so much, and I have wanked him so much over the course of the history of this channel. I just really think he's among the greatest living directors. And I think it sucks that his name doesn't come up nearly enough. And it also sucks that people kind of disregard him because his movies haven't made $1 billion, or he makes movies, whatever. I don't think any of that matters. I think that the way the work of Mary Shelley is interpreted in this movie is rightly divisive for a lot of people. I won't weigh in on it because Frankenstein is a feminist piece, and that's kind of lost in this movie. But it's lost in every adaptation of it, I can tell. So I don't think it's necessarily fair to hold it against this one in particular. Now, you could say that you wish that this one had broken the mold there and been more direct about the original intent behind the work, but again, it's not my place. What I will comment on is Oscar Isaac and Jacob Elordi, because the movie really hinges on them, especially Oscar, because Jacob's not in it until almost an hour. I think that Oscar plays Victor Frankenstein so well. He's a man obsessed with his purpose and completely driven and piloted by that obsession, and it makes it to where you can't see the forest for the trees. He doesn't even understand the reality and the scope of what he's doing, how terrible it is. So after he's done it, and it didn't work the way he wanted it to. Not until after he creates the creature and realizes this isn't what I'm. Oh, that he thinks, oh, maybe I've done a terrible thing, and it's not because what he has done is an affront to science and an abomination in the eyes of anyone with a conscience, but it's because it's not as smart as he wanted it to be. He doesn't have the patience or the mental fortitude to become a parent, even though he just created life, you know? And then he wants to take a moral high ground and be like, what, you want me to create another monster? I can't do that. And I think to that end, Jacob Elordi plays a creature with such nuanced pain and childlike wonder, and it really goes understated. I haven't heard enough people talk about Jacob's performance in this. I haven't really in general, but Jacob carries the second half of the movie, and in large part to the fact that his performance has to be so multifaceted and focus on so many different things. You know, curiosity, grief, pain, rage, regret, mourning, all of that stuff has to be present, and he does it so well. While playing a character who is only just now learning what the words that he's using even mean. That's all I'll say. I think if you haven't seen Frankenstein, you absolutely should watch it. It's a phenomenal film. Now, moving on to number 2, another movie that I've got a review for, Superman. I gushed at great length about Superman. I haven't rewatched it as much as I would like to, but I still like that movie. While it's not necessarily the tightest on, I don't think that the narrative is perfect. I think that it was also probably heavily edited, and I think that James Gunn was a little held back in comparison to his approach to the Suicide Squad movie. I still think that this movie does the best at portraying a hopeful, kind-hearted, and well-meaning man since 1970. I think that the way David Corenswet bodies the character, it's like Superman is real. You know, I think that for the first time in a long time, superheroes are inspiring people and reminding them how beautiful the world can be if we all believe. I think that that is fantastic. I think that it's unequivocally what the purpose of Superman is in this day and age. About politics, it's not about any of that. It's just about common decency and believing in your fellow man. And to that end, I think Superman is one of the greatest movies of 2025, one of the greatest movies of the decade, and I can't wait until Man of Tomorrow. Now, we are at number 1, and this should come as a surprise to no one. It is. You can say it's because I'm black, you can say whatever, but the simple fact of the matter is, for me, there is nothing that comes close to how well crafted and respectful and well researched and beautifully communicated, well directed this is. I think that everybody more than pulls their weight. I love what it has to say about integration and about subjugation and just the message that music transcends borders and transcends generations and can communicate to those before and after us. It's just it's beautiful, because I've always said that music is one of the few universal languages as humankind have. It's music, and it's food, and it's art. Those are the 3 things that we have that unite us as a race. And I think that's what Sinners is trying to communicate. And I feel like it's in a league of its own. And it makes me so excited to see what Ryan Coogler does next. They haven't said yet. They haven't said if he's doing Black Panther 3 next, or if he's doing us next, or what, or if Black Panther 3 is even happening, if Marvel does do a reboot after Secret Wars. None of that stuff is important. I just want to see what he does next, because I think he continues to evolve and elevate himself as a filmmaker with every film he makes. And I'm just filled with so much optimism after seeing Sinners, and seeing really just the impact that it had, how positive word of mouth uplifted this movie and made it a box office success that Variety didn't think it could become. And it's nice to see a movie of such high quality be recognized for what it is, even if Warner wants to make it a franchise without Ryan Coogler. I think is a terrible idea. Sometimes a movie can just be on its own. Again, no movie is perfect, but I think that this is like the closest thing to a modern masterpiece that I've seen this entire decade so far, and we're halfway through. Maybe by the time we get to 2030, I'll make a top 10 movies of the decade, and it'll still be number one. But who knows? But that's the end of my list, boys and girls. We are through another year, and I guess you could say that my New Year's resolution for 2026 is to see more movies. I did see more stuff. I saw Predator: Badlands. I saw Wicked. I saw Five Nights at Freddy's. But I mean, did you think any of those would be on this list? I sure hope not. I did see plenty, but I didn't see enough to do a top 10 best and a top 10 worst. Still have movies that I didn't talk about, like I didn't. But I mean, I guess I could ask the question, what's your most anticipated movie of 2026? I will probably do a movie about my 10 most anticipated movies of 2026 right before the new year. Still got a couple days left for that, but that's all I got for you guys today. And while you're down there in the comments telling me what your most anticipated movies is, why don't you tell me what your favorite movie of 2025 was? And I'm gonna give my voice a break. I've been yapping for 30 minutes. See you guys next time.